Clara Whitmore realized her marriage was over before her husband even noticed she was in the room. Not because of a confession, not because of a message, but because of the way he leaned toward another woman like Clara no longer existed in his world. She didn't cry. Not yet. She simply watched. And in that moment, something inside her became very, very quiet. Earlier that evening, Clara had been in a completely different emotional universe. She adjusted the sleeve of her charcoal evening dress as she stepped onto the sidewalk, the early autumn air cool against her skin. The dinner had been Olivia's idea, a recently opened bistro in the River North district that everyone at work had been talking about. Clara had needed this night more than she wanted to admit. The last few months have been exhausting. Long projects, late emails, and a growing silence at home she couldn't quite explain. Her husband Daniel had become distant in small ways first. Missed conversations, half-listening responses. The subtle kind of emotional absence that doesn't announce itself until it's already become normal. Tonight was supposed to be a reset. Olivia spotted her first, waving with her usual bright energy. Next to her stood Marissa, composed as always, scrolling through something work-related even during dinner plans. These women had seen Clara through almost 15 years of life transitions. First apartments, career failures, promotions, family losses. They were constants when everything else shifted. Tonight, they were celebrating Clara closing a major corporate contract that had taken nearly 8 months to secure. Inside, the restaurant hummed with the controlled chaos of a successful Friday night. Low pendant lighting reflected off dark wood tables. Glassware chimed softly. Somewhere behind them, a piano version of an old pop song played quietly enough not to interrupt conversation. The hostess led them toward a semi-private booth along the back wall. Clara slid into the seat and exhaled slowly. For the first time in weeks, her shoulders dropped. Olivia ordered wine without asking. Marissa began telling a story about a client presentation that had nearly collapsed when the wrong financial model was sent to the board. Clara laughed, a real laugh, the kind she hadn't heard from herself in a while. She hadn't realized how tightly wound she'd become until that moment of release. Daniel had been busy for almost half a year now, always tired, always distracted, always just slightly somewhere else. Their conversations had turned logistical. Bills, groceries, scheduling, functional marriage communication, emotional absence disguised as adulthood. Clara pushed the thoughts away. Not tonight. Tonight she allowed herself to just exist. The wine arrived, glasses lifted. To Clara, Olivia said, the only person I know who can out-negotiate 3 executives and still answer emails at midnight. They toasted. Warmth spread through Clara's chest. Connection, validation, presence. For a few minutes, life felt normal again. Marissa was halfway through describing a difficult client when Clara's attention drifted across the dining room. Not searching, not suspicious, just observing. And then her brain stopped processing sound. Near the front windows sat Daniel, at a table for 2, across from a woman Clara had never seen before. The woman looked younger, dark hair falling over one shoulder, a fitted burgundy dress, the kind of effortless presentation that suggested this wasn't a spontaneous meeting. She laughed, and when she laughed, she touched Daniel's forearm, softly, familiar, intimate. Clara felt her stomach drop as if an elevator cable had snapped. Sound disappeared. Olivia kept talking, but her voice became background noise. Clara watched Daniel smile. Not his polite social smile, not his work smile, his real smile, the one he used to have at home. He leaned forward slightly. His hand rested near the woman's, not touching. But close enough that intention was obvious. Clara? Marissa's voice cut through the silence in her head. You okay? You look like you saw a ghost. Clara didn't answer immediately. Her mind had shifted into something analytical, detail-focused, almost detached. Daniel's glass held the same Barolo he always ordered on anniversaries. His navy blazer hung on the chair behind him, the same one Clara had picked up from the cleaners 3 days earlier. The woman wore thin gold rings, minimalist, intentional, not random. Olivia followed Clara's gaze. Her face changed instantly. Oh God, is that Daniel? Marissa turned, her expression hardened. Who is she? Clara surprised herself when she finally spoke. Her voice was steady. I don't know. Olivia grabbed her arm. We should go over there. You need to confront him. Clara shook her head slowly. Something fundamental had shifted inside her. She expected rage. Instead, she felt clarity. Cold, precise, almost surgical. Suddenly, everything made sense. Late meetings, guarded phone, emotional distance, excuses that never quite aligned. Not confusion anymore. Pattern recognition. "Clara, seriously," Marissa began. "Yes," Clara said quietly. "I can sit here." She lifted her wine glass calmly, took a slow sip, never looking away. She watched them for another minute. Too comfortable, too practiced. This wasn't my first dinner. This was a continuation. The woman didn't ask how Daniel liked his steak. She already knew. Daniel didn't ask what she wanted to drink. He had ordered before she arrived. Olivia and Marissa exchanged uneasy glances. They expected tears, anger, shock. Not this controlled stillness. "What are you thinking?" Olivia asked softly. Clara placed the glass down carefully. "I'm thinking a public scene won't change reality." A small pause. "I'm thinking I need information before making decisions." Another breath. "And I'm thinking I refuse to give him the privilege of watching me break." Marissa squeezed her hand. "You're handling this better than I would." Clara gave a faint, distant smile. "I don't feel strong." She hesitated. "I feel like I'm observing someone else's life." Then quietly, "But if I walk over there right now, I'll lose control. And I want control." Olivia signaled for the check. "Then we leave." Clara nodded. As she stood, she allowed herself one final look. Daniel said something. The woman laughed again. Then she reached across the table and touched his cheek. Casually, naturally, like she had done it many times before. That was the moment Clara lost her last illusion. Not hope, just denial. The three women left together. Clara walked with perfect posture. If anyone looked, they would see confidence, not collapse. Outside, the cold air hit her lungs sharply. Olivia unlocked her car, but Clara shook her head. "I need to walk." "We're not leaving you," Marissa said. They walked 1 block in silence. Clara's heels struck pavement in steady rhythm, each step grounding her. Her brain replayed months of memories through this new understanding. The work weekends. The unfamiliar perfume once on Daniel's jacket. The way he had started turning his phone face down. Small details, now forming one very clear story. And Clara understood something important. This wasn't the moment her marriage broke. This was just the moment she finally saw the fracture lines that had been spreading for a long time. And for the first time that night, she wasn't thinking about what she had lost. She was thinking about what she was going to do next. Clara Whitmore did not confront her husband because she was angry. She confronted him because she finally understood. And understanding is always more dangerous than emotion. Anger explodes. Understanding restructures your entire reality. As she walked with Olivia and Marissa through the quiet streets, Clara began mentally reconstructing the last year of her marriage. Not emotionally, forensically. The unexplained credit card charges Daniel had called client dinners. The way he had slowly stopped asking about her day. The subtle withdrawal she had tried to excuse as stress. "How long do you think it's been happening?" Clara finally asked. Olivia hesitated. "Does it change anything?" Clara considered that. "Maybe not," she admitted. "But I need to understand how long I was living in a lie." They reached a small square park and sat on a cold metal bench. Traffic lights changed. People walked past. The city continued functioning, completely indifferent to the quiet collapse of her personal world. Clara thought about the woman from the restaurant. The confidence, the ease, the attention. Everything Clara had been trying to maintain while balancing deadlines, responsibilities, and a marriage she now suspected had already ended long ago. "What are you going to do?" Marissa asked gently. Clara didn't answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice had changed. It was calm, decisive. "I'm going home." A small pause. "I'm going to document everything." Another breath. "And then I'm going to decide what my future looks like." She looked at them directly. "But whatever happens next, happens because I choose it, not because I caught him." Olivia pulled her into a tight hug. "We're not going anywhere." For the first time that night, Clara felt something unexpected beneath the pain. Not strength, not relief, clarity, small, sharp, growing. For the first time in years, she wasn't seeing her life through hope. She was seeing it through truth. And truth, while brutal, was clean. That night she saw her husband with another woman. Tomorrow she would begin seeing herself without illusions. Clara drove home through nearly empty streets. Her hands were steady. Her thoughts were not. The apartment was dark when she entered. Daniel wouldn't be back for hours. Of course he wouldn't. She moved slowly through the home she had spent years building, choosing furniture, picking colors, creating comfort. Now every decision felt like evidence in a case she hadn't known she was building. She made tea she never drank. Then she sat at Daniel's desk. His laptop waited there, closed, password protected. But she knew the password. He had given it to her years earlier, back when transparency still existed between them. Her fingers hovered only briefly. Then she typed. The screen opened, and with it, reality. Emails loaded one by one, each one small, each one devastating. The same name repeated again and again. Vanessa Hart. Nothing explicit, nothing dramatic. That wasn't how affairs actually looked. The intimacy lived in details. Private jokes, launch plans, shared frustrations, references to meetings that weren't meetings. Clara scrolled backward through months of quiet betrayal. Professional messages became friendly. Friendly became personal. Personal became something else entirely. Receipts appeared. Boutique hotels. Restaurants Daniel had claimed were business dinners. Jewelry purchases Clara had never received. The evidence accumulated until emotion shut down completely. By the time Daniel's key turned in the door close to midnight, Clara felt almost numb. She was still sitting at the desk, laptop open, screen light reflecting in her eyes. Daniel walked in smiling slightly, loosening his tie. Then he saw her and froze. You're still awake? Sit down, Daniel. Something in her tone removed his choice. He sat, and Clara watched the exact second he noticed the laptop, the open messages, the evidence. Color drained from his face. It's not what you think, he said automatically. Stop. Her voice was quiet, but final. I saw you tonight. Silence filled the room. At the restaurant. Another pause. With Vanessa. Daniel's composure collapsed. I can explain. They always say that, Clara replied. It's complicated. No, she said calmly. It isn't. She turned the laptop toward him. I've been reading for 3 hours. Receipts, messages, reservations, patterns. Lies, she finished. Daniel rubbed his face. I was lonely. The words came too quickly. You were always working. The second he said it, he knew it was wrong. So this is my fault? Clara asked quietly. Her composure cracked slightly for the first time. I worked because we had plans. For investments. For stability. For a future. She looked at him steadily. And while I was building that, you were building something else. Daniel ran both hands through his hair. It just happened. No, Clara said. You chose it, repeatedly. We can fix this, he insisted. I'll end it. I don't want you to end it because you were caught. Silence. I wanted to be married to someone who would never have started it. That was the sentence he had no answer for. Clara stood, walked to the bedroom, pulled out a travel bag. Daniel followed her, now desperate. Promises, apologies, future commitments. She moved with quiet efficiency, taking only essentials. She would figure out the rest later. Where are you going? A hotel. I need distance. We can fix this, he repeated. She turned toward him one last time. You already made your choices. A small pause. Now I'm making mine. The hotel room was impersonal, cold, temporary, but it was honest. No lies lived there. Clara lay on the unfamiliar bed and finally allowed herself to cry. Not for Daniel, for the version of herself that had tried so hard to make something work that had already ended. 3 days later, she returned to work. Tired. Eyes shadowed, but posture straight. She had told Olivia and Marissa everything. They responded exactly how real friends do. Not with pity, with loyalty. Now Clara focused on the one thing that had never betrayed her. Her competence. The industry summit came at the perfect moment. She buried herself in preparation. Grateful for structure, grateful for purpose. She had been selected as a speaker on strategic brand positioning, and she refused to appear broken. That was where she met Victoria Hale. Victoria was everything Clara once imagined becoming: self-made, confident, unapologetically direct. She approached Clara after the panel. "That presentation was exceptional," she said. "I've been following your work for a while." Clara felt something unfamiliar. Professional validation at exactly the moment she needed it. "Thank you," she said. They went for coffee. Coffee became lunch. Lunch became a long conversation about risk, reinvention, and the strange freedom that sometimes comes from losing what you thought defined your life. Victoria eventually said something Clara would remember for years. "The worst thing that ever happened to me," she said calmly, "forced me to become the person I was supposed to be." Clara Whitmore did not rebuild her life because she was strong. She rebuilt it because she finally understood she had no reason to stay small. For weeks after leaving Daniel, she had thought of the betrayal as destruction. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, she began to see something else. It wasn't just an ending, it was clearance. Space where something new could exist. Victoria Hale became part mentor, part reality check. Their meetings weren't formal, no contracts, no structure, just conversations that kept Clara from slipping back into self-doubt. Victoria introduced her to people, recommended her for projects. But more importantly, she kept reminding Clara of something she had forgotten during her marriage. You were never the supporting character in your own life. And slowly, Clara began to believe it. Over the following months, she stopped surviving. She started building. It was during another industry summit that Clara first really noticed Adrian Mercer. Of course, she had seen him before. Everyone had. At 41, Adrian had built a private investment group known for backing companies before they became obvious successes. His reputation was precise rather than flashy. Demanding, strategic, dangerously perceptive. The kind of man who evaluated ideas the way a chess player studies positions. Clara was presenting a strategic growth framework when she felt something unusual. Not attraction, attention, focused attention. She looked up briefly. Adrian was watching. Not politely, not socially. Seriously. Like he was testing every assumption she presented. Afterward, he approached directly. "Clara Whitmore." She was mildly surprised he knew her name. "Your market integration model solves a problem most companies don't even realize they have." He studied her a second. "Have you ever considered building something independently?" They spoke for 20 minutes, and Clara felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Intellectual energy. He challenged her assumptions, expanded her thinking, treated her as someone capable of more, not someone recovering from something. That distinction mattered. That same evening, Daniel called. She almost didn't answer. Part of her wanted closure. Part of her feared regression. They met at a quiet cafe chosen specifically because it held no shared memories. Daniel looked different. Thinner, tired, less certain. He started with apologies that sounded practiced from repetition. "I ended it," he said quickly. "With Vanessa. I told her it was a mistake. I want to fix this. I'll do therapy. Anything." Clara listened quietly, then asked one question. "Why did you end it?" He hesitated. "Because you realized it was wrong? Or because you lost the illusion of secrecy?" Daniel had no clean answer. "I'm choosing you," he finally said. Clara shook her head gently. "No. I'm choosing stability," she corrected softly. "You're choosing familiarity. You're choosing not to have to explain failure." Daniel flinched. "That's not fair." "Maybe not," she said, "but it's accurate." A long silence followed. "You stopped choosing me a long time ago." That was the truth neither of them could undo. She left that meeting knowing her decision was already made. The legal filing happened the following week. Signing the documents felt both terrifying and strangely peaceful, like stepping onto solid ground after realizing how long she'd been standing on something unstable. Professionally, everything accelerated. Victoria recommended Clara for a leadership role she would never have considered months earlier. She interviewed, expecting nothing, preparing anyway. When she received the offer, she sat quietly for several minutes before reacting. Not from shock, from recognition. She had earned this. Adrian continued appearing at events. Their conversations grew longer, more layered. He asked about her thoughts, her ambitions, her long-term vision. He never asked about her divorce, which told her he already knew enough. One evening after a successful product launch, he invited her to dinner, clearly stated, no ambiguity. No pressure, he said, just conversation. Clara hesitated. She was still technically married, still recalibrating, still rebuilding herself. But she also recognized something else. She felt alive again. At dinner, Adrian was thoughtful rather than charming, measured rather than performative. He spoke openly about his failures as much as his successes. What do you actually want? He asked her at one point. Not your next role. Your direction. No one had asked her that in years. I think, she said slowly, I want to build something that belongs to me. He nodded. I can see that. I don't think you were built to maintain systems. I think you're built to create them. The idea settled in her mind like something familiar she had forgotten. Outside the restaurant, he walked her to her car, streetlights reflecting across quiet pavement. I want to say something carefully, he said, and I want you to know there's no expectation attached. He paused. I respect you. Not just your competence, your composure. The way you've handled everything life seems to have thrown at you recently. Clara felt her breath catch slightly. How do you know anything about my personal life? Victoria mentioned you were navigating change. I didn't ask for details. That's yours to share if you ever want. Then carefully. But when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'd like the chance to know you outside professional rooms. Clara felt emotion rise unexpectedly. Not sadness, recognition. That means more than you probably realize, she admitted. But I'm still learning who I am outside my marriage. I'm not ready to start anything new. Adrian smiled slightly. I assumed that. Take your time. I'm not operating on a deadline. That answer told her everything she needed to know about his character. That night in her new apartment, Clara realized something had returned. Not romance, not validation, hope. Not hope for Adrian, hope for herself, for the person she was becoming. Daniel's betrayal had broken something, but what was growing in that space felt stronger than what had existed before. 6 months after the night in the restaurant, the divorce papers arrived. She signed them immediately. Each signature felt less like a loss, more like permission, to breathe, to expand, to exist without explanation. Her new office reflected her transformation. Corner space, glass walls, her name beside the title, Director of Strategic Development. Everything in that room she had earned through discipline and resilience. Olivia and Marissa took her to lunch to celebrate. Champagne at midday, symbolic. To freedom, Olivia declared. To second chances, Marissa added. Clara smiled. To become exactly who I was supposed to become. And this time she believed it. She had changed physically too. Not intentionally, just naturally. Morning runs, better sleep, shorter hair, sharper presence. She looked different because she was different. Later that week, she met Adrian again. His firm was considering partnering with her division on a major launch. She arrived prepared, focused, certain. They spent 2 hours dissecting strategy, debating, refining, building ideas together. Clara felt something she hadn't experienced in her marriage for years. True partnership, mutual sharpening, respect without competition. As the meeting ended, Adrian hesitated. I heard your divorce finalized. How do you feel? She considered carefully. Lighter. Clearer. Ready. He tilted his head slightly. Ready for what? She met his eyes. For whatever comes next. Something shifted in the air. Adrian moved toward the window overlooking the skyline. I've tried to give you space, he said quietly, and I will continue if that's what you need. But I want to be honest. My interest in you hasn't changed. If anything, watching you rebuild yourself only made it stronger. Clara Whitmore realized something important the moment Adrian told her how he felt. She could step forward, or she could retreat into safety. For most of her life, she had chosen safety, patience, waiting, adjusting herself around other people's comfort. But the woman she had become no longer recognized that version of herself. And she understood something else too. Healing doesn't mean becoming fearless. It means deciding fear no longer gets the final vote. Her pulse was steady when she stood and walked toward him. "I'm not the same person I was a year ago," she said. Adrian nodded slightly. "I know. You're not rebuilding. You're becoming." Clara gave a small breath of laughter. "I have scars now. Trust doesn't come easily anymore. I question motives. I notice everything." "I would be concerned if you didn't," Adrian replied calmly. She studied him carefully. "I'm not looking for someone to fix my life. I'm not looking for someone to complete me." A quiet pause. "I'm already whole." Adrian smiled slightly. "That's exactly why I'm here." Their first real date happened 4 days later. Not extravagant, not performative, just intentional. A quiet Mediterranean restaurant tucked between office buildings most people walked past without noticing. Conversation came easily. No pressure, no performance. Just two people learning who the other really was. Adrian spoke honestly about his early business failure. How he had nearly lost everything at 32. How success had come later than people assumed. He spoke about his complicated relationship with his father. About expectations. About loneliness that success doesn't solve. Clara found herself sharing things she hadn't planned to say. Not about Daniel. About herself. Her resilience. Her plans to eventually build something independent. Her unexpected discovery that being alone did not mean being lonely. When Adrian walked her to her building, he didn't try to kiss her. He simply took her hand briefly. "Thank you for trusting me enough to try." Clara squeezed his hand back. "Thank you for being patient enough to wait." That restraint told her more than any grand gesture could have. The following weeks unfolded with a quiet stability Clara had never experienced in a relationship. No drama, no uncertainty, no emotional negotiations. Adrian didn't try to impress her. He simply showed up consistently. Art exhibits, long conversations, late-night discussions about ideas instead of insecurities. Respect for her boundaries. Respect for her independence. It was during this time she learned something unexpected about Daniel. Marissa still had contacts inside his company. Office conversations travel fast. Apparently, Vanessa hadn't been the first affair. There had been others. Careful. Hidden. A pattern Clara had never wanted to see. The information should have hurt. Instead, it confirmed something important. Leaving hadn't been impulsive. It had been survival. When Daniel asked to meet one last time, Clara almost refused. But curiosity is sometimes the final step toward closure. They met in a public botanical garden. Neutral ground. Daniel looked older, not physically, emotionally. "I heard you're seeing someone," he said carefully. "Adrian Mercer." Clara neither confirmed nor denied. "Is that why you wanted to meet?" He shook his head. "I wanted to apologize properly." A long pause. "Not because I was exposed, because I finally understand what I destroyed." He looked at her with something raw. "You're different. You look lighter. And I hate that it took losing you to realize I was the one holding you back." Clara felt compassion, but no pull. "I appreciate you saying that. And I believe you mean it. But understanding doesn't undo consequences." Daniel nodded slowly. "I'm in therapy. I'm trying to understand why I needed validation from people who didn't matter instead of protecting what did." Then quietly, "Is there any chance we could try again?" Clara looked at him carefully, searching her own feelings. She found something surprising. Peace. "I forgive you," she said, "and I genuinely hope you become better because of this." A small pause. "But forgiveness isn't the same as returning. You taught me what I will never accept again. And strangely, that might be the most valuable thing I take from our marriage." Daniel's voice broke slightly. "Please don't erase what we had." "I'm not erasing it," Clara said gently. "I'm learning from it." "That's different." She stood, and this time when she walked away, she felt something unexpected. Not relief, gratitude. Not for the betrayal, for the clarity it forced. Daniel hadn't destroyed her. He had forced her to meet herself. Adrian was waiting outside her building that evening, carrying takeout containers. One look at her face told him everything. "How did it go?" "Exactly how it needed to," she said quietly. He asked for another chance. Adrian's posture shifted slightly. "And?" Clara met his eyes. "I said no." I said I finally understand my own value. And I won't negotiate that anymore. Adrian's expression softened. That may be the most impressive thing about you. I'm still learning to believe it, she admitted. 3 months later, Clara stood on another conference stage. This time not as a participant, as a keynote speaker. She spoke about resilience, about rebuilding identity, about turning disruption into direction. The audience was completely silent. When she finished, the standing ovation didn't feel like applause. It felt like confirmation. Adrian sat in the front row, Victoria beside him, both watching with quiet pride. Afterward, journalists asked questions. Her story had circulated. She refused to dramatize Daniel, refused to play victim. She spoke only about growth. That decision elevated everything. That evening, she and Adrian walked along the riverfront, city lights reflecting across dark water. Adrian stopped walking. I need to say something honestly. I've been careful. I've given you space. But I don't want to pretend I feel less than I do. A breath. I love you. No pressure, no demand, just truth. You don't have to answer. I just wanted you to know. Clara felt tears rise, not from fear, from recognition. I love you too, she admitted, and that scares me. And excites me. Adrian smiled slightly. Good. That's usually how real things feel. When they kissed, Clara understood something she had never understood before. Love wasn't supposed to feel like effort, or negotiation, or survival. It was supposed to feel like expansion. 6 months later, Clara launched her own strategy firm, Whitmore Advisory Group. Victoria became a strategic advisor. Adrian became an early investor. Olivia helped structure operations. Marissa assisted with brand positioning. This time, Clara wasn't fitting into someone else's vision. She was building her own. And for the first time in her adult life, her success, her peace, her relationship, her future, all belonged to her. Clara Whitmore didn't measure her success by money anymore. She measured it by peace. And peace was something she had once believed she needed someone else to give her. Now she knew better. She had built it herself. Her firm exceeded every forecast within its first year. Not because Clara was lucky, because she was finally operating without fear. Her strategies resonated with clients because they came from somewhere real. She understood the risks, reinvention, the courage required to walk away from something familiar and build something uncertain instead. People trusted her because she wasn't selling theory. She was selling lived transformation. Almost exactly a year after signing her divorce papers, Clara found herself somewhere she never expected to return. The same restaurant, the same soft lighting, the same quiet music, the same corner of the city where her old life had ended. This time she wasn't there by accident. She was there to celebrate. Her company had just secured its largest contract yet, and Adrian had insisted they mark the moment properly. As she stepped inside, Clara noticed something surprising. No pain, no tension, no ghost of the woman she had been that night. Only perspective, only distance, only gratitude. Her eyes drifted briefly toward the table where everything had once changed. A different couple sat there now, laughing, sharing dessert, completely unaware of the invisible history attached to that space. Adrian noticed the direction of her gaze. You all right? Clara smiled. More than all right. A small pause. I was just realizing something. That night, what I thought was the worst moment of my life was actually the beginning of the best part. They were seated near the window, city lights reflecting across the glass. As Clara looked around, she didn't just see a restaurant. She saw a timeline. The woman who had walked in here a year earlier had been holding her world together with hope alone. The woman sitting here now didn't need hope. She had evidence. Her phone vibrated softly. A message from Olivia. I just saw Daniel announce his engagement. Just checking. Are you okay? Clara smiled gently. She typed back, I'm not just okay. I'm free. And she meant it. Free from needing his approval. Free from negotiating her worth. Free from shrinking herself to keep someone else comfortable. Free to love fully because she had finally learned how to stand fully on her own. Adrian lifted his glass. To you, he said. To the woman who turned the worst year of her life into the foundation of her best one. Clara touched her glass to his. To new beginnings, she said softly. even when they arrived disguised as endings. As they toasted, she caught her reflection in the window. For a moment, she studied it. Confident posture, calm eyes, someone who looked certain of her place in the world. She barely recognized that woman, and that felt right, because she wasn't the same person. The woman who had walked into this restaurant a year earlier had been shattered by what she saw. This woman had taken those broken pieces and built something stronger than what had existed before. That night, she had seen her husband with someone else. But what changed her life wasn't what he did. It was what she chose to do next. She didn't fight for him. She didn't collapse. She didn't perform pain for an audience. She chose herself. Dignity instead of drama. Growth instead of bitterness. Forward instead of backward. The betrayal had hurt, but the transformation had been extraordinary. As Clara sat across from Adrian, discussing expansion plans, future travel, and possibilities she once would have been afraid to imagine, she understood something she wished she had known years earlier. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you isn't destruction. It's redirection. And sometimes the person you are meant to become is waiting patiently on the other side of the moment you thought would break you. All you have to do is keep walking. And this time, Clara wasn't walking away from something. She was walking toward herself. If this story made you feel something, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling us what you would have done in the main character's place, and subscribe to Sinner Stories so you never miss a new video.